When you go into a company, how do you help them identify their pain points? What are the most common things that employees find dissatisfaction in? Welcome to StaffBuffalo's Pain Points Podcast. Hi, I'm Lauren Lewis of the Pain Points Podcast.
And I'm Maggie Shea.
Today we're here with Dustin Snyder with Wayforward. And Dustin, we've had a great history of knowing each other professionally. We had the opportunity to work together on some recruiting initiatives at a former company of yours. And I've been consulting for a few years. So tell us more about your journey through your career and into consulting.
Sure. So thank you for having me, first of all. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get to chat. My journey through my career. Came up, cut my teeth in labor relations. I like to say I'm a recovering labor relations professional.
Which can be very taxing on your life, I can imagine.
A little bit, yeah. So my career's been in labor relations and human resources. I like to say that I'm a recovering labor relations professional. The point where things really started to pivot for me was, I don't want to say that I threw away the labor relations and HR toolkit.
I don't think you ever can throw that away. It's always going to be a part of you.
No, and
right?
it's essential, right?
Yeah.
Like it's legal compliance. You can't run a business without it. But a lot of the toolkit is designed with the assumption that your employee is your adversary and that you're limiting liability, that your people are a source of risk and liability for the business. And people can feel that when that's the way that you're treating them.
Right.
So when that started to click for me, I realized that I need to approach things in the opposite way. Because we all know when we're in a conversation that's being managed toward a particular outcome. And when I started to just decide to trust people and try to learn from their expertise and not assume that I was the expert and that I had all the answers, stuff started to take off for me.
It's probably really important when you're working with people to understand where they're coming from, having conversations with them, listening, and understanding that every single one of us is different. We communicate differently, we listen differently, we learn differently, we talk differently. So how do we engage with them to make sure that they are having a productive and fulfilling career?
Mm-hmm.
How did you navigate that next step in your career to build Wayforward and your consulting business of taking the labor relations background and the HR background and then bringing that to other companies and helping them really learn from you?
Mm-hmm. I just did some reflection. I looked back at the years of my career and I looked at what worked. I looked at the times when things went well and things took off, and I looked at what didn't work.
Yeah.
And I had an interesting pedigree in that I worked at a lot of organizations where things were very dysfunctional, where leadership was just beating their head against the brick wall constantly, where things weren't going the way they wanted them to go. People didn't want to be at work. People called in all the time. They weren't hitting their goals, where we were just constantly not crossing the finish lines that we set for ourselves. And so I said, okay, what were we doing in those environments that wasn't working? And I said, okay, what were the times that things did work?
Yeah.
And I analyzed and looked at, all right, what made things cross the finish line? What made things take off? And so I just analyzed in my participation in that too. I wasn't doing anything differently than those leadership teams. I wasn't any better. I did things the wrong way for a long time. And I said, okay, what worked? Why did these outcomes happen positively and why did these outcomes happen negatively? And I built a process, I built a system around that, and that has become what Wayforward goes into organizations to do. And here we are 4 years later, 40 some odd clients later, a lot of outcomes that I'm very, very proud of for those companies, and it's a proven system that works every single time.
When you go into a company, how do you help them identify their pain points? Because sometimes when you are running a company, you are just so used to the day-to-day.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know, and you're trying to just get the job done and achieve results, whether it's sales, whether it's getting product out the door, whether it's meeting the needs of your clients. So sometimes you don't realize, you have a problem, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you help them navigate that and identify their pain points or their problems?
So leadership knows when they have a pain point because it starts to impact their world. It starts to impact the balance sheet. It starts to impact the bottom line, the financial results, the business results, often the customer experience or the customer outcomes, whether it's on-time delivery or infection rates or implementation timelines in software, whatever the industry is. When they start to feel it at leadership, it means a very small problem has grown and grown until it started to impact the customer and the financials.
It's like snowball effect.
Yeah. But what they generally have a hard time with is, where is it originating? Where is that problem coming from?
The root.
How did it start? Yeah, the root cause.
And sometimes I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's hard for people to stop what they're doing and diagnose the problem and provide corrective actions. Because you're like, you're in the zone of doing what you always do.
Yeah, I like
You
to
might
say
know
it's-
there's a problem, but how do we fix it? How do we stop? Where do we start?
Yeah, it's hard to read the label from inside the bottle.
Yeah.
Is what I say.
I like that. I never heard that one before.
That's great.
And our plates are full. When you're in management role, your plates are full. You're often pulled into a lot of stuff that you in the first place shouldn't be doing. You're working in the business instead of on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you're most valuable to the organization is probably not in a lot of the stuff that you're spending your day-to-day on, and we need to help you get out of it. But you're not in the seat that sees that origination point. You're not in the seat that sees the root cause. You aren't able to connect those dots because they're not visible to you. The guy on the mountaintop and the guy in the valley, those are two accurate viewpoints, but they're
Right.
very different.
Very
They
completely
can't
different.
see the same things. So when you're in the corner office, you don't see the things that are in the face of people that are on the front line of the organization
Right.
day in and day out. If I'm an individual contributor at an entry level, I might have a 20 by 20 space that I know like the back of my hand. And if there's a problem in that space, it's staring me in the face every single
You see
day.
it every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to figure out, okay, what do I do with this problem?
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know, you're also not seeing the whole picture either. We all have, putting together all of those different vantage points is a big part of what I do. I help leadership see everybody's perspective together, the cumulative perspective of the organization, so that we, even if somebody's being honest with me in leadership, most people in organizational leadership, they're not getting accurate information because people don't want to tell you the truth,
Right.
especially
Exactly.
the bad news. But even if somebody is telling me the truth, I don't know, is it just Maggie's perspective? Like, is it representative of everybody else? Is she sugarcoating things? Is she just a complainer? I don't know if it's valid, reliable
What are the
information.
trends, right? Like, is that a trend or is it like just
Reality.
a person's
Yeah.
situation?
Sure, how connected is this to this larger system that's creating
Yeah.
this outcome?
So then how does your system actually identify where the roots are, first of all, and then the root cause? Like, how do you really ferret down and figure it all out?
Sure. So I have an interview-based process,
Mhm.
and I interview a representative sample of the organization. I don't have to talk to everybody. I try to err on the side of about 1 in 5 people. And that's actually more people than I would actually need to talk to in order to know what the issue is. But I talk to that many people because that tends to engender support and buy-in from the organization. Part of my process is designed to get the buy-in of employees in the change so that they know that they have input into whatever's going on.
Mhm.
So I interview people, and then this isn't a new method that I've created. Comes from decades of organizational psychology methodology. But so every sentence in my interview notes becomes a data point in a data model that I've worked with UB's data analytics department to create. And so I then analyze that data for every sentence gets categorized. It's analyzed for the trends and patterns that emerge from it.
So you can turn it into actually like a visual data. You can turn it into something that you can present to the owners and say, see, this is a visualization of what's actually going on in your organization.
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool.
And then also into an objective narrative.
Mhm.
Because 80% of the people in that company, I haven't sat down with them.
Sure.
They don't know if their experience is reflected in my report. But I just had a conversation with a CFO this week who was really thankful that she got a lot of feedback from the back of house reports to her. And a lot of people who weren't interviewed were really surprised to see, this is my experience. I couldn't have added anything else, but you didn't even talk to me, but you got my experience accurately. And that's just the whole goal.
Mhm.
So I turn it into a narrative so that not only can the people who I've interviewed see that, okay, he got it right. He's not just some HR shill.
Like, who knows what he's saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also the people who weren't interviewed can also, see, okay, I'm reflected here as well.
So it's extremely communicative because you're taking all of the feedback and then you're actually pushing that back out to the employees. So if there is any like, oh no, you didn't get it right, let me talk to you, you might have those one-offs that might approach you as well. Have you ever had that happen to you?
Well, the nice thing is that hasn't happened yet.
Well, that's great.
And it lets people see that, A lot of people are very worried about engagement surveys and things like that.
That's what I was thinking.
About
Yeah.
confidentiality. And, all right, is leadership going to know that Dustin said this about them? People are concerned about that coming back to bite them. And just having that concern in the first place is kind of a red flag about the organization, because if your people think that, then how have you acted in the past to create that perception?
Making that. Them feel that way. You're
Yeah.
making that culture. Yeah.
They're worried about it. But then it shows them in that narrative that it's not about any individual contributor. And if Maggie's the only person that tells me something, it doesn't make its way into the report. It's only the things that rise to the level of being a larger pattern.
It's not going to be anything outside of the bell curve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So coming into an organization, it can be really threatening to employees to bring in an outsider that's assessing them, interviewing them, and reporting back to leadership ultimately. How do you make them trust you and know that there's confidentiality in their responses to the questions you're asking them?
Sure. I'm really conscious of that. I mean, first of all, I'm as an individual, a very introverted and awkward person.
I don't believe that. 1 second, Dustin.
I don't think I had any friends until like high school. But
Were you a
so
Lego
like,
kid?
what's that?
Were you playing with Legos?
Totally
Yes,
Lego
yes.
Star Wars kid. Yeah,
Yes,
I knew
yes.
more about Luke Skywalker than I did about girls. Right? So I've been in those organizations where employees are disengaged and distrustful of management, and HR was really just the principal's office.
Yeah.
Right? That happens.
Oh, yeah.
So I assume that's the default, and you have to put work in before anybody's going to be forthcoming with you.
Right.
The cool thing is the communication process that I'm getting to
Yeah.
is people are really forthcoming, and like people tell me all the time how surprised they are at how much they shared, and they tell their management how surprised they are how much they shared.
Great.
That's awesome.
So I do basically just informational huddles. I don't summon them to a conference room. I go to where they are doing the work, whether it's the nursing unit, or if it's a sea of cubicles, or if it's on the side of the road by the power lines, or if it's on an oil rig, whatever it is, that's where I go. And I dress like the people that I'm there to talk to. I don't show up in a suit if they're in coveralls.
Yeah.
Not calling them into some creepy room, like from Office Space.
Like, hey, you come to me because I'm some.
You gotta meet them where they're at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the first step. Just show them that I'm willing to put in a little bit of effort.
Yeah.
And then just have a level conversation with them and say, here's what I'm here to do. This is what to expect. This is why I'm here. This is what the process is. I let them know about the confidentiality. I really hammer that home. I tell them, look, I've interviewed thousands of people all over the country, and no one's ever come back and said that something that they said got attached to their name. But if you do feel that way, I tell them, I actually say, and bleep this out if you have to, but every single time I say, tell your coworkers that Dustin guy's full of shit.
Yeah.
And don't talk to him.
Yeah.
Because I know that it's that important. I said, leave me a bad Google review, whatever you got to do. I just open that up to them. Tell them the name of my company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it hasn't happened yet, thank God.
Thankfully,
And I'm very confidential with it. I've got people that my client book is confidential. I've got people even the people that are in my circle that are aware of what clients I'm working with, they don't get to see the data. The client never gets to see the data. They just see what comes out of the data. So I have those conversations, and I've done 26 of those conversations in one day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's gotta be taxing on you.
But it's worthwhile.
Absolutely.
If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to get the level of information that would help those people have a better place to work, that would help the company eliminate their problems and become more profitable.
Are there trends of issues that you see at companies? Like, are the top three issues that you see over and over again at different companies, in different industries, different size companies? Like, what are the most common things that employees find dissatisfaction in?
Yeah, I don't see differences between industries. First of all, I mean, as I just mentioned, I've worked with everything from software to higher ed to agriculture to manufacturing to healthcare.
Credit unions. Manufacturing.
I've worked with several financial companies. The issues are the same. It's just how we relate as people. It's just behavioral norms. That's all it is. It's just different. But the business issues, the organizational issues are the same. The biggest thing, I'd say half of my work over the past 4 years has been turnover, high retention of employees and people turning over. I come in for accountability, communication, any time where there's a disconnect between what leadership is trying to accomplish and what's actually happening on the front line.
Makes sense. So then, in general, what are kind of the main pain points that you're seeing where there's a high turnover, for example? Like, is there one or two, a top three?
I will say that the assumption that I can dispel with 100% confidence is that it has anything to do with wages or benefits.
That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with so many companies who benchmark their compensation at 50% or less for their market, and like that's not impacting the turnover. What I do see is when companies don't understand their value proposition and they're not using that to recruit and they're not focusing on doubling down and protecting the things that are important to their best performers. So like a lot of companies will use something called exit interviews,
Yeah.
and they want to understand why people are leaving. So first of all, they're talking to the wrong group of people.
Yeah, you should
They're
try it.
talking to someone who is not a good fit with their organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be like, I don't know, it'd be like a Lamborghini dealership going to a Ford dealership and trying to talk to the person that's buying an F-150. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
Yeah, why didn't you buy the Lamborghini? Because I don't want
I need a pickup truck. I need a bed in the back of my car that they can load my tools and my lawnmower and all my
This is
equipment.
not valuable to me
Yeah,
at
no,
all.
yeah.
Like, it's nice, sure.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
People who like Lamborghinis, great. But like, that's just not me.
Yeah.
And
It's not going to
so,
be nearly as comfortable at the drive-in.
like, F-150, great vehicle. Lamborghini, great vehicle.
Yeah.
Totally different
Totally
target
different
markets.
uses, yeah.
Totally different uses.
Yeah.
And so the companies, they can understand that metaphor because they understand their customers. We've put a lot of effort into understanding our customers and how they make decisions and what's important to them. We don't put that same level of effort into understanding our employees
Right.
and why they choose our company or why they choose a different company.
And what makes them thrive and what drives them in general in their lives that are actually coinciding with your goals and your mission of the organization.
Totally.
Because once you find what they want to pump the gas on and it matches what you want to pump up the gas on, then you're actually building a great organization together.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And there's no wrong value proposition.
Mhm.
If you want to be the company that pays the top salaries in your market and you're the cutthroat sharks and that's what you do, that's cool. There's lots of people who are gonna
Yeah.
be attracted to that, and that's the kind of job that
You
they
gotta
want.
hire the cutthroat shark too.
You have to hire the cutthroat shark. But like, if Lauren Lewis is my best employee and she's a high performer, if I could clone Lauren and I had 5 of her, I'd be on Easy Street as a business owner, then I'd better be sitting down and talking to you about what's important to you and why you work here, why you stay here, what motivates you. I should know you as intimately as I know my best customer.
Right.
So that I can go to market with my recruiting and say the things that resonate with you because they're going to resonate with other people like you out in the market. And that doesn't only attract more of the right people. When you attract the right people, they stay.
They stay.
Mm-hmm.
That's your attention right there. It's getting
Yeah.
the right people, and then they drive with the other people on your team, and they're all trying to like help you and help their fellow team members move the company forward
Mhm.
and drive business and optimize what they do every single day. And
And
optimize
just a
business.
very tactical kind of side of that to mention is that you know the AI job descriptions that are just created and they're so generic. Yeah, they might tell what someone does day in, day out from like a tactical perspective, but it doesn't put any of the personality from the organization into it.
Mhm.
So I always say that to use that as like your one of the tools to
Yeah.
really connect with people that you haven't met yet, so that you can tell them your values, what you want out of an individual, what the individual should expect out of you as an organization.
Totally.
And then really it's like starting to paint that picture well in advance so that by the time that they get the offer, they're not like, who are you and what do you stand for? But they understand a little bit more. They just don't know what I will do in that specific job, but what I will contribute to the future of the organization, which I think
A
is
job
huge.
posting is so often your very first impression of the
Mhm.
candidate. If they've never heard of you, if they don't already want to work for you,
Mhm.
this is the first time they're being introduced to you. It's such a wasted opportunity
Mhm.
to start creating that emotional connection with that person to say the same things are important to us.
Yeah, and then it connects.
And I think job descriptions too, just staying on that topic, they've advanced. They've come a long way in recent years because the
Videos
candidate
even.
experience though is so much more important.
It's so important.
So we're trying to, like I said, reach those potential people to apply to your organization that will be a fit for your company. They are in line with your values. They're the type of person that you want to hire. We're going to help capture them right in the job description too. and then you're going to hire better people for your organization. It goes a long way. You're not having these retention issues.
Yeah, I think a lot of times that even before AI, I've seen a lot of HR departments that the kitchen sink goes into the job description. It's just a list of everything you could ever possibly do, and there's
You might get a paper cut.
Yeah.
Like it says things like, you might get a paper cut. And it's like, oh man, that is a bullet point. It's crazy.
There's some liability reasons why they do things like
True,
that.
true,
I think we take it to an extreme a lot of the times. But then you lose touch with, if you have to read the phone book to understand what the job is, then you lose touch with what is the job? Who am I working with? What do I actually have to accomplish in this role? Or am I just doing a bunch of tasks? Like, you can't tell what the priority is with the job.
And if you're hiring someone that you want as maybe a researcher, then yes, you can put that all into the job description where you really want them to find that whole thing. That could be interesting, but otherwise, yeah, you don't need a 3-page job description.
Yeah, my job description is 3 pages.
Oh,
I'm a
you
firm
lost
believer a job description should be 1 page.
Yeah.
And I should be able to I should know what the organization's about, I should know what kind of people I'm working with, and I should understand what I need to accomplish in this role.
Yeah.
I have to admit though, I'm not a huge fan of just the 1-pager for resumes now at all. I think that people have like much more of 2 resumes. So just kind of going on that with the job description, I do think like you have to give what you want people to understand of you, kind of on the both side of things, the matchmaking side. But
If you're gonna have a second page, they have to make it through the first page.
Yeah.
true.
Right?
Oh, fair, yeah.
So if you're gonna go into a second page,
That'd be worth it.
it's got to be worth it. Like
Yeah.
I need to have not lost interest at that point.
Exactly.
The 6
Yeah.
seconds.
Exactly.
yes.
And you can't like get to the good part at the end. Like you got to kind of hook them in the beginning
Yeah.
about who you are and what your values are and your mission and your organization, what you're going to do, and then kind of like throw in the extra stuff at the end on that second page. And I think with resumes too, going back to that, some people are so afraid of going on a page 2 because I feel like forever is ingrained. Like 1-page resume, 1-page resume. Resume should be 1 page. And it's like, if you're not showcasing who you are as a professional to get you that interview in 1 page, like you gotta go to that second page. Don't go more than that. Like can I still keep it tightened up? But you gotta also show your skills or experience, especially if you're at a certain point in your career where you've had, let's say, 10 years of experience already. Sometimes it's hard to tighten that up on 1 page without selling yourself short.
How long do you take to read resumes?
I would say if I spent 30 seconds on a resume before I made a decision whether I wanted to read on or not, then that would be a lot.
That is a lot, yeah.
I mean, because when you're in HR, you're used to reading resumes, or if you're a hiring manager, you get the broad strokes. And if you're gonna peel back the next layer and read all the bullet points, you need to have seen in the headings
Yeah.
what you want to see.
What
You
you're
need
looking
you need to have a green light in your brain saying, okay, these are the kinds of roles in organizations that mean this person could do the job. Let's see if they've got the experience within these that mean they could do the job. And then I'm gonna be really looking for like the high level. If it's a role where compliance is really important, I'm gonna be looking for. There's going to be certain regulations that I'm going to be looking for to see on that job. If it's a role where I need them to manage change, then I'm going to look for accomplishments. If they just have a list of responsibilities and tasks, then I know that they can't do the job, and they're not interested in change because they haven't highlighted it. And that might be a person who's applying to a lot of jobs with the same resume.
Right.
Yep.
And that
The
means
select I'll apply.
yeah, totally. So you got to show that you're the person who can fit this job.
Absolutely. Now, how do you feel about cover letters?
I love to use cover letters.
Oh, it turned into a love hate.
It's a love hate, yeah, because I think a cover letter is really useful and really beneficial if you take it as an opportunity to tell your story. And tell your story as a way that it might relate to a company and the job that you're applying to. How your skills, how your maybe personality can be a benefit to that organization. If someone's just going to write a cover letter and it's very generic, please accept my application to this role of a sales representative at your company. That's so stupid and pointless and a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah.
Don't do it. If you're going to do a cover letter, like put some time, effort, thought into it and make it creative to show who you are as a person, as a candidate.
You have to be taking a different angle. It's not just, hey, my skills and experience fit this role, because that's what your resume's for.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's more of the organization looking through. It really speaks to me because of your values, because what you do, the location. Like there could be a lot of things that you talk about.
And it shows them that you did the research into that organization.
Yeah.
It shows that you looked at their website, maybe you looked at their social media, maybe you read deeper into the job description. Maybe you looked at the hiring manager and you found out that you did the same college sport and you can connect on that. Great opportunity to put that in there and start building the rapport with the person you might be reporting to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think stuff like that, it just shows you took the extra step because you are that interested in that opportunity with that company.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes a long way.
I feel that they're important for exactly the reasons that we're sitting here talking about. If you're using the right avenue of approach to the role. If you're just applying to an online job posting, they're never going to see your resume anyway. I'm a believer, based on my experience, and I haven't been proven wrong that yet, that if you're not either already have a personal connection to someone in leadership at the organization or the hiring manager, or you're working through a staffing firm or recruiting agency, and this isn't just a shameless plug, I'm sitting down with one. I had this conversation with my best friend who's a business owner last week. We went on a run and we talked about it. I said, anyone who's applying to online job postings is making sure that they're not getting the job.
Yeah.
If you're not working through an agency or you don't have a personal connection with the company, like in HR, like you would have to just luck of the draw be in the top of the stack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you get hundreds or thousands of resumes for a position, you're not even going to look at everybody. You can't.
You can't. You don't have time.
Yeah. Once you have enough people who should make it to an interview, you stop.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think the personal connection that you're saying really builds a lot. So we love referrals. We love just like people reaching out to us as well, because then we meet them and then we're more excited to refer them as well. But what I find fascinating in general is that when you're even rejecting someone, we'll get emails back that are so wonderful that then I'll send them to the recruiters and be like, this is a wonderful response to a rejection email. And it just is that personal touch that then we'll interview them. So it depends, because it depends on their background, it depends on all that, and be like, well, maybe in the future something could be good, but just because they took that extra step to say, hey, thank you so much for just letting me know that I didn't get the job, or just that kind message. Some people go out of their way to even find a way to email our general business or email one of us directly or reach out to one of us on LinkedIn. And it's just so much more personalized than just Indeed.
I will say, I mean, years ago I owned a business in hospitality, and there was a young man who turned out to be one of our best employees. But his resume was awful. He had really no experience, but he just walked in the door one day and came in and shook my hand and introduced himself and said, I'm excited about what you're doing here. I would really like to work here. And we had a really nice conversation, and it was an experiential business. Like, I was hiring people that could make the customers feel great and engage with them and connect with them.
Yeah.
And he showed me that he could do all that.
Immediately.
And there was nothing on paper that could have told me that.
Right.
And now we're in a day and age where a computer can write your cover letter. A computer can apply to jobs for you.
Yeah.
Everyone has a college degree, and it's almost meaningless now to have a college degree. So nothing on paper can differentiate you anymore. It's what have you actually accomplished, and do you do what you say you will do, and have you made a good impression on other human beings? Like that's going to be the thing that sets you apart. Like, that's why referral matters. It's not nepotism. It's not favoritism. It's this person can make a good impression on human beings.
Absolutely.
I think it's so old school what that person did too. They came in, they looked you in the eye, they shook your hand. There's some people that come into an interview and they don't even shake your hand anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They don't look you in the eye, or they don't send you a follow-up email or thank you note. Like, that can really make or break someone's opportunity. Like, if you really like that person, but they don't follow up, they don't thank you for your time, well, and then are they going to be at the top of your list anymore? They might not be, because that might be a reflection of how they interact with their customers, whoever their customers might be.
It's hard to blame them for doing that, because it can be daunting. I imagine you apply to dozens of jobs, or if not more, and you're not hearing anything back. You don't know all the things that we know necessarily, being on the other side of it, how to differentiate yourself and get ahead. And so I can see someone getting disillusioned and becoming jaded, and just applying to the job and going through the interview and not sending the follow-up, not recognizing that it's the depth of connection that's going to set them apart.
And let's remember, we're all humans, we're all people. You want that human connection, that personality, and if you're in an interview and you're not taking an opportunity to connect with that person who's going to be hiring you, who you might be reporting to and working with every single day, then it's not the right fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember when I was in pharmaceutical sales, I was interviewing for a job, and I connected so much with this manager, and it was a company that I was like, maybe didn't have like the best impression of, but I connected so much with the manager, it made me take that job. Because we just bonded immediately over the phone, and then in person. And I had it was probably the best 4 years of my pharmaceutical career at that company. And my judgment of this organization, because I just didn't really know much about them until I talked to the people. Mm-hmm. But having that connection can really go far in your career. And I think we've seen that at StaffBuffalo too. Like the people that we really connect with, like in interviews and, get to know, they're the ones that really thrive at StaffBuffalo too.
And they're going to connect with their clients, and
Yep.
they're going to connect with the candidates, and they're going to be excited when the matchmake happens, which
Yes.
is what excites us.
Yes, and we see that all the time with our recruiters too. It's like, I love when they say, here's a candidate for this role, I just know they're the right fit. And next thing they get hired, it's like, your gut, your intuition, your knowledge was so spot on with it because you know the client so well, you know the candidate so well, and you're just making that perfect match.
And that's what a client leadership team wants. They want to know, are you going to take the time to get to know me,
Yeah.
to know what I need, to understand me, and make decisions and send me stuff that is going to accomplish what I want. Mm-hmm. And if someone sees that as transactional, if they don't see it as a relationship worth understanding the other person, investing in the other person, they're not going to do those things. And I think that's so much of my work is based on the fact that everything that is true about human psychology doesn't just stop at 9 a.m. Like it just doesn't freeze from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We don't lose all of our emotional reactions. We don't lose everything that makes us human.
Cease to be human, yeah.
Yeah, just because we walk through the door into the office. That's a ridiculous thing to think. But we actually do think that in the workplace. A lot of people just stop your human psychology from functioning.
Leave it at the door.
Yeah, stop your digestive
Some days I'm
system.
like, leave it at the door. I need to leave it at the door too.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes that's
just
just
a break.
for life, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a break from life. She's sometimes coming to work.
Great.
But you can, and it's not that you can sit crying at your desk all day every
Right,
day.
yeah.
But
There's extremes.
We treat it like it's not a hard science, and I think it's just because until the past couple decades we didn't know as much about it as we know about the physical bodily sciences. But it would be like telling someone to stop their digestive system from working for 8 hours. You can't do it.
No. I think there's so much that goes into organizational psychology and human psychology. They're so similar, and I love that you can apply that to different businesses and corporations. And Dustin, your background is industrial psychology, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't call it that. It used to be industrial organizational psychology, or IO, but now it's just organizational psychology. Yeah,
my favorite course in my MBA was organizational behavior. And it helped me really understand that there are differences at every company, different culture, different values, and you have to approach each organization differently because of how they are structured, what their values are, what their mission is. And I'm sure that applies a lot to what you do with Wayforward and working with your clients too.
Yes, totally. Each company has a different culture, yes and no. The best definition that I've got for company culture is just the way that we do things. That's essentially the same definition in the anthropology field of just human cultures. And a culture is the way that you do things. Different companies have different values, and they have different things that they say, different things they need to accomplish, different ways of working. As long as the behaviors in the organization are in alignment with the stated values and mission,
right,
the way that we say that we do things and the way that we actually do things, as long as those things jive, you're good. Where you run into dysfunction is when what you say and what you do don't align, because then you're not going to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, because your behaviors aren't aligned with your words.
When you're in an organization and you're doing your assessments and interviews with employees and you identify those pain points, how do you help them overcome and improve as an organization so we're remedying those issues?
So a big part of it is, by the time an organization has contacted me to do the work that I do, I don't have a sales phone in my body. All my work comes through referral. So it's generally like CEOs talk to each other, and I've worked somewhere and they say, hey, I had a similar issue, I called Dustin, he fixed it. So then I get the phone call from the next organization. But the leadership team, they want to do a good job. They're not intentionally doing any of these things. Maybe I'm an engineer or a doctor who I'm really good at the thing, and I got into leadership, and there's no leadership training. I don't know what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
a big part of it is just connecting the dots for them and showing them objectively, A happened and B was the outcome. And when I said earlier, like, we treat psychology like a soft science, it's really not. That whatever outcome we're experiencing is a very logical outcome based on the inputs in that system, based on whatever the variables are in that system, based on what our environment's like as a human being. Our behavior is very predictable based on the factors influencing that behavior. So that whatever outcome the organization is experiencing has a very logical root cause, and you can trace it back.
Yeah.
I use techniques that an engineer would use Six Sigma to diagnose a mechanical problem or an electrical problem, and I do the same thing with human systems. So I help the leadership team see cause and effect. I connect the dots for them, and then once that clicks for them, like, oh, of course that makes sense. I just never looked at it that way before. Then they want to understand, okay, what variables can I change within the system to have a different outcome?
That's so interesting because I think sometimes you think that, but it's not a common thing, right? Everything is so different, and just this organization is this way because of that, this one's that, but there are commonalities between every single organization.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do we identify those things to help them evolve and change and become better organizations?
So just be more intentional. Intentional is a word I use all the time. We design our hard processes. We design like a patient care process or a software development process or a recruiting process. We tend to not design or you guys designed it intentionally because that's your line of work, but I might not as a client organization.
Right.
I might just I'm going to post a job and I need somebody, like, it's these things that come out of fear and stress, so I just do reactively. I don't design and say, okay, what outcome do I want? And let me work backwards to design the things that I need to do to achieve that outcome. You know, if, in any other area of our life, like if I want to lose weight and I'm eating cheeseburgers every day, I'm not going to lose weight. Like, so
it's protein, Dustin.
it is protein. Yeah. Hey,
We all need protein, a high protein diet.
Usain Bolt eats chicken nuggets for the 2 weeks before his competition.
Does he really?
To avoid food poisoning. Apparently, Michelin star
That's
restaurants have a higher incidence of food poisoning than McDonald's.
That makes sense.
So, by customer. So
Interesting. He's one of the top athletes in the world, so I'm going to do what Usain Bolt
McDonald's
does.
has an intentionally designed system to produce a consistent outcome, so that no matter where you go, you're getting the same McNugget.
It tastes the same, yeah.
So
no matter where you
Better
are.
or worse.
No matter what country you're in, too.
that's a great example.
Yeah.
So if you want the same outcome, you need to do things the same way. That's what I help companies do is design an intentional system to create an intentional outcome.
They say insanity is the definition of doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same results.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to change things up. You have to do something different to get different results.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where consultants like yourself come in. Because when you're not in the company on the day-to-day, you come in, you bring an outside perspective, you bring a different ear for the employees, right?
Even a different energy.
A different energy.
I mean, because you're always doing the same thing, and you're 365 days a year, of course, with the weekends. But, like, you're working together all the time, so you're used to each other like family in a way. And so bringing someone from the outside in really opens it up and allows that opportunity to be like, oh, shine a little bit of light, dust it out underneath the couches, stuff like that, where you're just used to being on the same routine, the same everything. So even though your intentions might be the best, you might be miscommunicating and might be going in opposite directions. So it's really nice to kind of like have someone come in from the outside and just be like, hey guys, let's all talk together.
Especially if people have different communication styles.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't realize you're communicating differently, and you think you're saying what you're supposed to be saying, but the person's not hearing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that can create a lot of conflict.
That's a great example. The family. I draw from a lot of different fields, like I mentioned anthropology earlier. Organizational psychology is starting to learn a lot more from clinical psychology. And there's a whole school of like marriage and family therapy called Bowen theory. There's a psychologist named Murray Bowen who has in science we would call it a theory. The Bowen theory would indicate that there's something called an emotional mass. He would call it a family emotional mass, but there's an organizational emotional mass. And if you are part of that emotional mass, it is very difficult to extricate yourself and work objectively on the forces between persons.
Creating it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, one of the things that a therapist is trained to do is to make sure that you can enter the connection with the people in therapy without becoming part of the emotional mass. So I do the same thing in an organization. I have to work very carefully to make sure that I don't become part of the organizational emotional mass, especially if I'm working in an interim capacity or a fractional capacity. I'm there for 2-3 days a week for months, that has to be a big part of what I guard against.
Yeah, you
'Cause
can't
that-
have your roots go into there.
Yeah, all my
Yeah.
skills, all my objectivity will die the second
Yes.
I get emotionally connected.
That
And
is-
I'm emotionally connected in that I don't have a horse in the race successful.
Yes, absolutely. So you have to stay focused on that goal no matter what.
Yes.
In this, and we're all subject to emotional connection and everything like
yeah.
that. So really trying to stay in your lane on that one, it has to be a little tough too, especially like spending 25 hours a week with people and stuff like that.
Yeah, it really is, because you come to care about them. I mean,
Yeah.
I care
Right.
about the people that I work
They're
with.
bringing you baked goods.
That-
Yeah.
Some of our clients who have been our HR consulting clients love when our HR consultants come in, because it is a third party. They're not biased towards any certain employees. They don't have that relationship, that connection, that friendship, which might muddy the waters if someone maybe needs a disciplinary action, or the person has a complaint, like then they feel weird going to their friend who's like the HR person. So having a third party consultant come in can really help kind of employees feel like a safety and comfort and trust in being able to talk to someone else who's maybe not as embedded in the organization and doesn't have any sort of biases or relationships with the employees too.
Yeah, and that kind of thing, yes, that needs to be done now and then. What I try to look at is, if I have to discipline Suzy Q because of some egregious behavior, okay, there's two things that I look at when it comes to disciplinary action. Is I make sure that the organization is differentiating between an intentional behavior and an unintentional behavior. If you're making a mistake, it's generally proof that you're trying.
Right.
If you're making the same mistake every day, okay, that's a different problem. You're not trying. We need to address that. But like, if you have a lot of disciplines for mistakes in your organization, you have to look at why there's so many mistakes being made. It's not like the common denominator is the process. It's not the people. If
Right.
if many people
Right.
are having
That's a
these
good
issues.
point.
So intentional behaviors, like if it's a behavioral thing, if it's you're just being a jerk,
Yeah.
like those kinds of things. Yes, let's go ahead and discipline for the intentional negative behaviors.
And if you talk to them once and they still keep doing it, then it's definitely they know what they're doing. It's very intentional.
Yeah, totally. I don't mind disciplining for intentional stuff. That's fine. For being a jerk, we're gonna address it. That behavior doesn't fit here. Like,
Right.
goodbye. If you're making mistakes, that's allowed. We're human. I make mistakes all the time. Thank God people are okay with them. But when an organization has a lot of the same behavior, if hey, absenteeism is a rampant problem. I've worked in companies where they have 25% absenteeism on any given day.
Wow.
And they act like that's
Normal.
like yep, that's just, we have to deal with that, and we discipline
Just
people
how it
as they're going through the progressive process. It's like, all right, this is a systemic issue. If it's just, all right, Dustin's a jerk or Dustin's making mistakes, okay, let's address it with Dustin. If 25% of our workforce has a major issue that is impacting our ability to function as an organization, we need to look deeper than, can we reactively discipline these people?
Right. There's a reason they're probably not wanting to show up to work.
Yeah.
And what is that reason?
And that's it. And actually, it took me decades to figure that out.
Yeah.
Like, absenteeism was one of those things where HR toolkit was just like, can I or can I not discipline? Does FMLA cover it? Does PFL cover it? Whatever.
Completely reactionary.
Just reactionary,
Yep.
and like that's the finish line. Oh, I can't discipline, nothing I can do, sorry. And when I sat down and I thought about, there's no other area of my job where I would just say, oh, there's nothing I can do. Like I'm a believer that there's always something you can do.
Yeah.
There's never nothing you can do in any given circumstance to get toward where you want to go. And so when I sat down and thought about it, I'm like, okay, well, why don't people come to work? And then I thought about myself. I'm like, I come to work sick. Like I love what I do. I'm dedicated to doing what I do. In past lives when I've been in-house, if I had the flu, I would still show up. Maybe pre-COVID now.
Yeah, now they're like, don't come, stay away.
Yeah. But like, if I didn't want to be at work, if I didn't feel like it, I wouldn't go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, if that's true for me, let's see if it's true for the rest of the organization. And when I started thinking about like, okay, people call in because they don't want to be here. How do we make them want to be here? And you want to show up for a company that you think will be there for you
Yeah.
when things go wrong in your life. If
Yeah.
you feel, why do I feel I need to go to work sick? Because I care about what I do, because I feel obligated to be there, because I feel connected to the work that I'm doing, because I care about the outcome. So how do we get people to do that? You have to be an organization that people know will be there for them. That's a two-way street. There's reciprocity.
Have you ever had Sunday scaries?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Have you? I never have.
Yeah, I mean, mine's more of like 10 p.m. Like, if you had certain times, there was some emails flying that I didn't want those.
Yeah.
But besides that, no, I never, like, I just really, really love work, and I don't know what I would be doing if I wasn't working. I guess I'd be making a full garden and, like, growing vegetables or something, but I have to be moving. So I don't know what that
I would say when I win the lottery, I will still work in some capacity because I love what I do. Might just take a different form, but I'm still going to stay active and work. But I think in all my, now that I've worked with 3 companies, 2 in pharmaceutical sales and StaffBuffalo, which I'm a part owner in with Maggie. It's like, I've never had a Sunday scary.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for people that do have that situation where they hate going to work, but then it's also like, they think they have to go because it's trudge to work, it's what they do, they're on their rat race, it's like the 9 to 5. But find something else that you love. Find a different company. Like, there's a lot of different opportunities out there, different companies that might fit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Find what activates you. Find what motivates you, where you want to go to work every day.
Yeah,
You're not having Sunday scaries.
The number of job postings out there is astronomical. Even within your zip code.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have transportation issues or something like that.
Right,
like,
you can always find something.
There's something that aligns better with who you are and what you want to do.
And I think just take the time, because right now is a lot different than say 30 years ago, where you couldn't do the research amongst all of these companies. I didn't even know the majority of companies exist that they do in Buffalo and Western New York. But you can have time to actually research each one, find out what their values are, find out anything nearby you if you want to do it. And you can YouTube even has a day in the life of a lot of different things. So you could be like, okay, is that a career I want to go into? You could do a lot of research if you take the investment in yourself.
I tell a lot of the job seekers I talk to who are a pivot in their career and they're trying to figure out what their next step is. And I tell them, start doing research. Research on LinkedIn. Find companies that maybe are in line with an organization you want to be at. Find someone at that organization that maybe has a job title you want and start talking to them. Mm-hmm. Start understanding if that really is a company you want to work for. If what they're putting out online truly is what they are at the core of the organization, and if there's opportunities there for you. And that's going to help you get your foot in the door and potentially getting a job at a dream company and a dream job for you too.
I remember doing that in college from my NEU.edu email address, and I was just emailing people asking them questions, and I was shocked. All the professionals got back to me, and I was just some random
college student,
just curious about what they did, and I asked questions that they had thoughtful answers and responses to. So just taking the time to invest in yourself by being curious, I think is huge, because you don't know what you don't know, and no 18-year-old really does, do they? I sure
I had no idea.
I did.
I went to college for math, then accounting. I'm doing
math.
neither. I do love math. Yes. I use it all the time. I love my Excel. But
I tell people the same thing. Like I said earlier, applying to an online job posting is a great way to make sure you don't get that job.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if you want to advance your career, just find someone in the job that you think would be interesting, even if you're not sure, and go buy them a cup of coffee.
Buy them a coffee.
Absolutely.
Hey, can I talk to you about what you do? How'd you get where you are? What are you dealing with on a day-to-day basis? What keeps you up at night? What's it like to be you? And have a conversation with them. And then at the end of that conversation, tell them, hey, this has been a really valuable conversation for me. I learned so much. Do you have 1 or 2 more people that I could talk to?
Yeah.
And then they're going to give you 2 names, and you're going to buy 2 more cups of coffee, and each of those people is going to give you 2 more names. And before you know it, you've talked to 30 people, and one of those people is probably going to offer you a job, as long as you're not going into it asking for a job or looking for the opportunity.
Don't be creepy.
If you're just curious,
and
then it ends up lining up that you like what you're hearing from all these people, one of them's probably going to offer you a job. And if people say no, if you're worried about if I ask them for coffee and they say no, now you know you don't want to work for that person because they're a jerk.
Right. And most people like talking about themselves.
Yeah.
They want to tell you how great they've done in their career and what they've done.
They're proud of it.
They're proud. Yeah. You invest a lot of your life into your job and into your career, so people are going to tell you their journey, their story.
How cool would it be for someone to just buy you a cup of coffee and think that your job is cool enough to ask about?
Yeah.
And sometimes it reminds you to say, wow, how lucky am I? I get to do this job. There's a lot of people out there that would want to do what I do every single day. And now I get to do that. And I think sometimes, just in life and human psychology, you have to remind yourself of those things too. Mm-hmm. And if someone asks you to have a cup of coffee to talk about that, gently remind yourself, wow, I am lucky. I get to do this every single day.
And go have the cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Pay it forward.
Yeah.
Have that in
the office for an hour or 2.
People are going to buy the cup of coffee for you.
Yeah,
exactly.
Just spend your time, give a little bit of advice, give a little bit of your time, and I think that's wonderful. What was your first job?
My first job, like, ever?
Yeah, ever.
My first job ever, I was a busboy at a restaurant in my hometown.
Nice.
Yeah.
Those are tough jobs. I could not be a waitress or anything. I ended up being a hostess for 2 years, but it was too much for me.
I was a bartender at college, but I don't think I could ever be like a server
Mm-hmm.
at a restaurant.
Yeah, I've done server, I've been bartender, I've been a bouncer, I've managed a bar.
Yeah.
It
All the
is so
things.
funny. Ending up in HR later and learning that, so I wasn't allowed to take breaks as a busser,
Yeah.
even though the shift was from 3 p.m. to midnight.
Oh, geez.
And
9 hours.
Yeah, in New York State, after 6 hours, you need a
Yeah.
half hour uninterrupted lunch. But I wasn't allowed to take any breaks at all unless I smoked cigarettes. Then I could take a 15-minute break every hour.
I love the cigarette thing. I used to do that all the time. I didn't smoke. I would just go with the smokers.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
for anybody watching is not legal. Like that, smoke breaks aren't a thing.
I always said that
culturally a
it was
thing.
culturally acceptable, like to go out on your smoke break.
Yeah,
But like if you weren't a smoker, you didn't get a break. No.
exactly.
I was
Yeah,
never a smoker.
one
so
of
like,
the one of the other
Right. They were so
servers
much fun, so I always went out.
who didn't smoke ended up starting to smoke just so she could take breaks.
That's
And-
hysterical.
But yeah, it was funny. Like if I sat down for a minute, I'd get in trouble. But for 9 hours, and there were stairs in the restaurant where like we're carrying trays up and down. But as long as you were smoking, you were allowed to 15-minute break every hour.
There you go. Every
So
hour
where is
too.
so-and-so? You're like, I don't know, where are they?
But
Oh,
they're
they're not
dirty.
smoking. It's fine. It's not a big deal. You're like, needed. And you're
Yeah.
like, no, but they're not smoking. No big deal. That is funny. I forgot about that kind of like part of
Do you have a
life.
worst job?
My worst job. It's a toss up between two. So I was in. Actually, this is actually kind of funny and kind of juicy given some current events. Feel free to cut it out if you want.
No.
I had a summer internship at the National Labor Relations Board out of college, and after 3 weeks, I quit because it was every day was like a bad episode of Seinfeld. Like it was the most colossal waste of everyone's time, day in and day out. And the National Labor Relations Board, just to qualify this, is a very important institution, and I think that they do great work. And yes, they have to change with the times and the administrations and the politics of the day, but like what they do serves an important purpose. But the majority of the people in this office, like just the level of effort that they put into things was just abysmal. Like the amount of office space that this place took up on the floor of the Federal Building downtown was mostly just cobwebs and boxes and stacks of paper and file cabinets full of God knows what from the 1960s. And I just don't understand what they were doing there at all. So now that is something that, regardless of how you feel about politics, Doge has said, we're clearing this out. Like we're not paying millions of dollars in rent for file cabinets to be kept here anymore. Like there's no reason to be paying taxpayer dollars for this stuff. And like as wacky as some of the stuff coming out of the news about Doge is, that was the first one where I was like, I've been there and that makes sense.
You're like, I saw it and I agree.
Firsthand, 20 years ago? Like
Yeah. So I mean, unless
You
they
don't
have,
think after COVID it's been less before?
Exactly, yeah.
unless
more
they have
complex.
revolutionized the way that they do things, which I highly doubt because it's the federal government and they haven't come up with anything new in several thousand years. So
Fair. Yes. Oh, I love that. Wait, but you said there was 2 jobs, so that was 1 job.
I worked another job where, and I was talking to Lauren about this the other day. I worked for an HR director, VP, something like that, who our offices were next to each other, and she called outside counsel every single day for like mundane, rudimentary, basic level
It's
HR.
so
knowledge.
expensive.
Like anyone with their like APHR would know some of these answers.
Google.
Yes, so she's spending hundreds if not thousands of dollars every single day on outside counsel for like, what's FMLA? Like just basic stuff. Like what do I do? And after weeks of this, I was new to the role, and the walls were thin. I could hear every conversation. And I went over to her and very tactfully, diplomatically indicated that like I saw how much we were utilizing outside counsel, and I have a background in labor relations. I have a really strong grasp of wage and hour law and leave administration and these things, and that anything she'd like to offload to me, I'd be happy to take that on. And she was the kind of person that was very threatened by things like that, and clearly didn't know what she was doing and had advanced in her career in spite of that, and she did not react well to that, so
No.
I got out of there pretty quick.
That attorney though was really loving it. She's like, these are the easiest billable hours I've ever had to meet. Like,
Totally. And
what a great client.
Just the associate doing it first year.
Exactly, yeah.
It was a first year associate, and I actually know I've watched that associate grow in their career
Probably
at
great.
a local firm, and I think she's brilliant now. She's doing a great job. But like back then, like she's been out of law school a couple days. Anyway, but yeah,
Not a good fit.
I'm very close friends with the head of that practice at that firm, and he likes that story. So
That's
Yeah,
thank
sure.
you for all those billable
But thanks
hours.
for the business.
Yeah.
But I mean, they stepped in. They're probably like a little threat. They're like, "Boy, Dustin's gonna take away our billable hours here."
I think
No,
That's
I made him plenty of money down the line with negotiations and stuff with other companies.
Pull them right back in.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Dustin, anything you want to add to our conversation? I feel like we covered a ton, and it has been an awesome, fun conversation. Anything else we should add about your career or Wayforward or the work you do?
What do you think is something that's really, speaking of the Pain Points podcast, what's something that you feel like is a huge pain point for the StaffBuffalo and HRBuffalo clients right now?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. I think a lot of times it depends. So on the recruiting side, one of the biggest pain points I think our companies find is just finding people. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to recruit. They don't know where to start. You mentioned something earlier about recruiting processes at organizations. They think you just like write a kind of really boring job description. You put it up on Indeed and you hope for the best. You get hundreds of resumes. A lot are like not even qualified for the job. You grab the first maybe 3 that might be qualified and hope for the best that one of them accepts your position. Now so much more goes into recruiting. We talked about the candidate experience earlier, making sure you are communicating externally about your mission, your core values, your brand, your organization, what you do to attract the right candidates. So it really starts there. And then following a process, we talked earlier about even candidates want to get a declined response. They want to know the resume got somewhere and someone looked at it and you're not a fit, they're appreciative, they just get a response.
Mm-hmm.
So doing all those things to make sure that your recruiting process has a process that is being followed consistently and that you are communicating to your candidates to make sure they have a good candidate experience. So you're hiring the best people for your organization. Companies just don't know how to do that. They don't know how to recruit. So
Yeah.
I think
And then they usually get overwhelmed. They shut the job down. They never respond to anyone. Then they never hire, and then they get stressed out because they should have hired a month prior. So it creates this cycle
It's a
of
cycle.
Just chaos because they're just trying their best, but they don't know what they're
They
doing.
didn't
Yeah.
realize
They're
that recruiting is like a
misguided.
full-time job in
And
itself.
it really is because it's in person-to-person job. So it's calls, it's emails, it's scheduling, it's just all of the true people-to-people interactions versus like doing accounting work. You can pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down.
Yeah.
So it's very, very different. And then on the HR side, that goes from everywhere. So it could be compliance-based where they just want to get themselves up to snuff. It could be that they have a big issue with retention or a big issue where they're going into a sale and they don't want to keep heavy on the P&L a lot of employees. So they'll do a lot of different things, and everyone has a different reason and a different pain point to kind of approaching us from the staffing and the HR side. But yeah, it's been fun, and it's so great to just help local organizations get where they want to be.
Totally. Yeah. If they don't have the internal staff to delegate this stuff to, having an outsourced function like you guys, I see the old method of recruitment doesn't work anymore.
no.
Because you don't have a captive audience, you don't have all the cards. As an employer, like it's the playing field is different now than it was 20 years ago.
It's not posting in the Buffalo News anymore, and then getting the responses from that either.
And
It's
it's
just
not-
a very different process.
You can't make it reactive. Like the just-in-time,
Yeah.
the just-in-time manufacturing, the just-in-time recruiting, you can't do that because then you have a vacancy. The rest of your staff is strained. They're all doing the job that this person is doing. You're having to distribute this work among the remaining staff. That's going to create more turnover because you're going to stress out everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
If they're assuming that person left for a great reason that has nothing to do with your company, just a lovely opportunity for them, okay, but like let's say they left because things weren't fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine that the rest of that team probably has a little bit of that sentiment also. And now we're piling on top of that with this person's workload.
Stress.
So you can't just fire up your recruiting machinery once there's a vacancy. Like you have to have a continuous recruiting process.
Yep.
And like the same way, like if I go Google for a pair of Levi's, I'm gonna get Levi's ads. Levi's is gonna email me and say, "Hey, we saw you checked us out. Like, you want to stay in
Get a 10%
touch?"
discount.
Yeah.
Give us your email
Like,
address.
what they're doing is they're trying to keep me warm.
Yeah.
They're trying to make sure that I stay in their pipeline, that I'm top of mind for them. And companies need, if either internal staff if they got them, or contract to do that kind of stuff so that they're continuously recruiting. They have relationships with people. Maybe I don't have an opening for Maggie's skill set today, but I know that I'm gonna in 6 months. And so I better keep Maggie warm so we're talking so that in October when I know that she's gonna want to work for me and I know that I'm gonna have an opening, I just slot her in. I don't have to fire up my recruiting mechanism and post and wait and interview.
Let's go with the virtual bench. Yes. So like you need someone you kind of like keep it in the back of your mind because you're not always ready to hire and they're not always ready to leave either. So it's really nice to create relationships with people throughout the years and actually figure out like, okay, if I ever had that, like our personalities match, we would want to take the company in the same direction. So like how do we actually combine our efforts, combine our brains, combine our everything and make it successful.
Yeah, so. If I can't afford to, like I call it N+1 staffing. If I know I have a key position that any turnover will hurt my business, then I should have one more than I think that I need.
Yeah.
Because a staffing is generally designed for a process functioning perfectly. If there's any disruption to that process, like someone leaving, the process falls apart.
Yep.
So it's the same. I use the example all the time, like Josh Allen doesn't have six-pack abs. He doesn't look like a bodybuilder. Why? Because he can get hit. And if you have 0% body fat and you get hit, you're going to get injured.
You're going to get injured.
So like he needs a little bit of padding so that he's okay when somebody sacks him.
And not just the Deion Dawkins padding that he provides on the O-line. It's like his own padding.
But like if you look at the guys who endure the most violence on the football field, the linemen.
That way.
Maggie has no clue what we're talking about. She's like, Josh who?
Yeah. The guys on the line they've got some padding.
Yeah.
Why do they have that padding? Because
protect themselves.
To protect themselves. So they need some mass to to throw around.
Yeah.
And a process is the same. If you don't have any padding, any wiggle room in that process, then any disruption to that process is going to break the process. So if you can't afford as a business to have an extra person on the bench inside the organization on payroll, then you'd better have a relationship with a couple people that you can call to say, hey, I got an opening today.
Yep.
And they'll say, yes, let me give my notice, I can't wait to work for you.
Yeah.
Because you know that you've got that alignment. And if you can't afford to spend that time inside your business fostering those things, then your marketing agency or your staffing agency should be doing that.
Absolutely.
I read a LinkedIn post the other day and it basically said about you're not paying a recruiting company to hire for you. You're paying them for their relationships. You're paying them to have a pipeline of people, and they give you the top 3 people that have already been vetted. They already know they're going to be a good fit for your organization. They have the relationship there. They're constantly keeping these people like engaged and warm and just talking, whether it's a position for your company or not, so that when the position does open, they already have the relationship. They can pick up the phone, call that candidate, and be like, hey, we have a perfect opportunity for you. Get right over to the hiring manager.
I mean, this is how we met. Years ago, I used StaffBuffalo for my company's recruiting when I was VP of HR.
Yeah.
And I needed that. I didn't have the internal bandwidth to spend the time and energy on that kind of thing. So
you had a lot of openings at that time.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, the consistent openings.
Yeah, I mean, we were rebuilding an organization.
There was something like where you and I met at a networking event for BNHRA.
Okay.
At Resurgence, and that's where we started like conversation.
Okay.
And we kind of kept like we'd have conversations here or there, like throughout the I don't know maybe 6 months till all of a sudden that company needed to hire, and then you're like, hey Lauren, can you meet? And I was like, we'll be right there.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we probably spent at least like 6 months or so, 8 months, helping you fill out those open positions.
Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't take 6 to 8 months to fill a position. I will say that.
No,
it was multiple positions over that time period.
And they were tough ones too.
Yeah,
there were like a lot of engineering ones. It was fun. It was a fun account for sure.
Yeah.
So what do you do in your spare time? What do you do when you're not like corporate America?
Sure. The funny thing is I don't spend that much time in corporate America. I feel like the environments I end up working in are never corporate.
I mean, they're corporations.
They're corporations. But like there's less cubicles in my world.
Yeah, there's less like long hallways.
Yeah. So let's see. I mean, I love strength sports. I compete in strongman, like lifting the Atlas stones and the action bars and stuff like that.
Did you like any of the throwing stuff? I've always wanted.
I haven't ever done any of like the Scottish games. I've never done those.
Those always look cool.
I keep wanting to, and like the Highland Games in this area, I just never, the schedule never works out.
Okay. Future goal.
So I'm huge in the outdoors. I do a lot of mountaineering. Last year I climbed Orizaba, the third highest mountain in North America, the highest in Mexico.
Wow.
So there's Mount Denali, and then Logan in Canada, and then there's Orizaba in Mexico.
Wow.
I've got a long list of mountains that I still want to climb.
It's a good thing there's a lot of them.
And then, a lot of outdoor stuff. I love shooting sports. And what else do I do for fun? Concerts, music. I've got 2 kids that I love to spend time with, teaching my son to use a bow and arrow this spring.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So
Are you gonna give him the real one?
He's got a real one.
There you
I
go.
mean, it's
Like his size.
I don't think it would do any damage on a living thing, but it'll mess up a cardboard box.
There you go.
It teaches them how to work, the functionality of
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
The
that's so
mechanics
fun.
of a bow and arrow and how to use it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I
Cool.
want to teach my sons that. I'll be like running.
You live in the city. Dustin lives in like more of the suburbs, rural area. Probably more space
It'd
for
be
that
like shooting
than
at
you
my
do.
brother's house. They're already doing the rocket that was shooting everywhere.
It's
There's about
teaching
alarms.
respect for the tool early in life. So.
It's great. The more tools you can learn, and I just think it kind of brings you back to like earth, brings you back to kind of your roots in general. So I always like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So anything outside, but I'm also like a huge reader. I burn through books. So.
Do you do nonfiction, fiction? Like, what's your kind of thing?
Mostly nonfiction.
Mhm.
I'll pick up I tend to just do like novels by recommendation from people.
Yes.
Because I have had too much bad luck with picking up novels that just bored the heck
I
out
can
of me.
never read the back and understand if I'm gonna like it. I always take referrals, so I guess
Yeah.
for everything.
Yeah, but I mean, mostly nonfiction, just trying to improve. Most of my passions revolve around just improving skills and getting better at stuff. So.
Yeah, so you're just a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
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 Learning is the only thing I'm actually good at. Like, people ask me, like, how do you do what you do? And I'm like, I just learn stuff. Like, I just learn quick. That's
Like,
all.
and then I
Yeah.
just
I'm not special. Nothing I do is rocket science. I just put it together. I help them put it together a lot faster than I did.
yeah, because then
You
kind
do
of,
the
like,
work ahead of
break it
time,
down,
so they can just break it down for
Make
them,
it
and they can just
digestible.
do the work.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed how long it's taking me to figure this out. It's because it makes sense.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, if you gave advice to your younger youth that was maybe in like even in high school, college, what would you give yourself separate advice than like kind of the path you took? Would you give yourself advice in general?
Yeah, I always had the idea that I would write my kids letters at the ages where I wanted them to read the advice.
That's cool.
That's
I never did it, which
Well, you have time.
Not yet.
I do have time.
Yeah.
Well, by the time they're 30s and 40s, like they'll have figured these things out. It's when you're in your teens and 20s that you want the advice and you don't believe the older people because they don't get it.
They don't know.
I don't get it, Dad. You weren't cool.
And you're like, oh, if you only knew.
Yeah. I don't know how I'm still alive. The advice to a younger self, I think patience. Be a little bit more, listen better, be kinder. Don't think that you have all the answers because I had a lot of, I think I was headstrong when in my 20s. I know I was headstrong and I think it bothered people and I think that can come across as arrogance. Just being confident in yourself and thinking you know the answers. Sometimes maybe you do have the answers, but it still doesn't rub people the right way.
Yeah.
And my career didn't really start to pick up speed until I decided that I didn't have the answers and I needed to be a better listener to the people closer to doing the work. But even then, even back in my 20s, listening to operations and understanding what they wanted and not being the breed of HR that just says no
Right.
and is just fearful of liability all the time. Just say, what are we trying to accomplish here? What are we trying to get done? And help the business do that. And be of service. Don't be self-important. Just be of service to the business and help them get done what they want to get done.
You're not the HR person coming with the clipboard and telling them what's what. You're listening to them and then becoming part of the organization throughout versus more coming in with
Being a partner and understanding
Yeah.
and listening and providing
Yeah.
solutions as opposed to
being
being
part
like,
of the organization versus coming with that solution straight up.
Yeah, I think I'm charting the course for them. I think I'm being a little bit more of a concierge than anything.
I like that.
Like I know the regulations.
Mm-hmm.
I know what we can't do. But instead of treating those as barriers, just treat them as the rules of the game.
Yeah.
Say, yes, we can get that done.
Yeah.
Here's what we have to avoid on the way. And have an affirmational response. Be positive and have a little bit more of an abundance mindset rather than scarcity and not just say no. Not just say, oh, we can't do that because of XYZ. Like, you can do it. You just have to avoid XYZ.
yeah.
Don't hit the buoys.
Yeah.
Stay in between the buoys and you'll have a great sail.
Yeah. Walking out your front door every morning carries risk. Getting in your car every day carries risk. the best
Eating
way
a
to,
grape carries risk.
yeah, the best way
What
to
about
limit
drinking grapes?
liability in business is don't open the business in the first place. So if we're going to be in business, we are going to have risk. Let's navigate it the way that we should.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Dustin.
Sure, this is fun.
If anyone wants to get in touch with you, how can they connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. The website is just wayforward.work. W-R-K. They can call you guys and you know how to reach me. But I can't imagine why they would want to get in touch with me after listening to me for the past hour.
There's a lot of reasons. There's so much good insight and so many ways you can help organizations really become better
Yeah,
and do better for their employees and overall just be a better business and better company. And it's going to only help them take their business to the next level.
Sure. Yeah, I learn every bit as much from my clients as they learn from me. Like it's just, I love what I do. It's such a cool thing to be able to help them get done what they want to get done.
It's amazing. It's so fun too. Well, thank you again for joining us, and hopefully you all tune in to another episode of the Pain Points podcast.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Pain Points podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to follow us so you never miss out on future episodes.